What did you
Oh,
say?
it's fine. If you have a cough drop. Okay. I just sit down. Okay. Can you start out with some background information? If you want to tell us when you were born, where you were born, about your parents and school.
Okay. I was born August 24th, 1919.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents was Essie and Elver Hammond. Is that what you need? And I was born in Briggsdale, Ohio, which is just a part of Columbus. Was never incorporated, just a residential place, but Columbus is a good reference point. And I have no recollection personally of that. My first recollection was from in Columbus on Eureka Avenue. Moved from there to Highland Avenue and started school there in the 6th grade. So, what should we?
And then, what did your parents do for a living?
Various. It was during the Depression time, 1929, 30, and my dad was in the insurance business, and they had a bakery. The Depression hit, and they lost their bakery and their home. So after that, he worked in the shop and done some farming and stuff like that.
And you had brothers and sisters, or?
Brother and sister. I'm the youngest. My
Mhm.
brother lived to be 98, and he died last September. My sister was 6 years, I think, younger. She's been dead a number of years now. And I'm the last remaining of that family there.
Okay. And where did you go to high school?
I went to West High School in Columbus,
Mm-hmm.
and then my parents moved to Mount Vernon, Ohio.
Okay.
And I graduated from high school there, 1939.
Okay. And at that time, was there any talk or anything in the news about a possible war that might be erupting in Europe?
Well, there was, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't make too much reference to it. I knew they was aware of it, certainly, and very much aware. So I was drafted in the Army from Ohio
Mm-hmm.
and Mount Vernon.
Well, what did you do after high school before you went to the Army?
Well, I just worked. I worked for the SS Kresge Company,
Mhm.
5 and dime store and stockroom,
Okay.
and that was about 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And I got married then, and then in 44, I was drafted.
Out of Ohio, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And then where did you go for training?
I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama,
In Alabama?
and that was infantry training.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of things did you do there?
That was infantry, well, just about infantry, rifle training and physical training for the most part. Nothing specialized except handling a machine gun or a rifle, things, bazookas and that sort of thing.
Okay, and where did you go on from Alabama?
From Alabama, I went to, had a 30-day delay en route, they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent that at Mount Vernon. And then from there, I went to, after that I went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
Mhm.
That was a POE, Port of Embarkation.
Okay, how long would you say that you were training before you left to go
16
overseas?
weeks.
16 weeks, that's kind of a short.
Yeah, it is.
Seems shorter than most
Basic
people.
training is what.
Okay, and then, so do you remember the name of the ship that you took?
Yes, I do. The Queen Elizabeth.
Nice, that's a pretty big ship,
That's a
isn't it?
big ship.
Okay, how many people would you say were on it with
Oh
you?
my gosh.
Thousands?
It was, I'd hate to hazard a guess. It's like a floating hotel.
Okay, did you travel with a convoy?
No.
Other ships, it's just that one?
They had enough speed that they could take a devious route and avoid submarines and stuff. So
Okay.
they told us
Do you remember how long the trip took?
6 days.
Not very long.
We landed in Scotland.
Scotland. What did you do while you were on the ship to pass time?
Oh boy. Played little cards and just roamed around. Wasn't much entertainment as far as that goes. You just
Mhm.
made your own entertainment.
Was anybody worried about coming into contact with any German subs or anything like that?
Well, I wasn't aware of any, no. There shortest that they had. Of course, going to Scotland, you go the northern route, you know, and not that that made them void of any trouble, but it was no threats to my knowledge.
Okay. And so you got to Scotland.
Mhm.
And what did you do
We
there?
debarked there and got on a train, troop train, and went to southern England.
What was the train ride like?
Oh, man. That was,
Weren't their trains like a lot older?
yeah, a lot older, and the wind just slid up and down on the side like, and one distinct thing about the trip was we stopped in London, but we wasn't allowed to get off.
Oh.
And I was hungry.
Was it really jam-packed with people?
Oh, no, just troops.
Okay.
And I know I bought a meat sandwich from a vendor on the platform, you know, and it was so greasy I couldn't eat it as hungry as I was. But anyhow, that's, then from there we went to, can't name the camp, but it was just near Southampton.
Okay.
And we was there for 1 week.
What were the conditions of that camp like?
Camp was a tent thing and had a mess kit or camp tent, you know, and it was a temporary thing, a processing port. That's where we got our gas masks, rifles, and that's when I was assigned to the military police.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
What was your specific title, like, of you?
Well, the only thing I can add to it, I don't mean to glorify the thing, it was called combat MP. We
Okay.
no spit and polish. It was our job was to evacuate prisoners as they was taken and shake them down and see that they got returned to the rear.
They mostly just Germans then, or
Yeah, they were German. I mean, the prisoners. Oh,
was
yeah.
there other people from other countries as well that were prisoners?
Not to my knowledge. It's mostly-
So after then, you got assigned to the military police,
Mhm.
and you were at this temporary camp for a week. Where did you go from there?
Camp what?
Did you say you were at a temporary camp?
Temporary camp,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. We boarded a ship to go across the channel there
Uh-huh.
to I think it was Normandy.
Mhm.
And we landed just exactly 30 days after D-Day, so that was a plus, you know. And from there on, we started the adventure in France,
Mhm.
of course.
So what are some of the things that you did while you were in France?
Well, after we got going, it seemed like a joyride almost across France, southern France, or central southern. We made good progress up until September. This was July.
Mhm.
Up until September, we went pretty fast. But we got into what they called Alsace-Lorraine. That's an area between Germany and France. A lot of bad weather and rain, and the division run out of gas. So we was there for 30 days.
Mhm.
And after that, our division, 4th Armored Division is what I was with, 3rd Army, 3rd Army, 4th Armored Division.
Okay.
And so we was headed into Germany, but we was in Luxembourg when they called us back to halt that direction and go to Bastogne.
Mhm.
That was in December
Okay.
44. And so we made our way to Bastogne, and that was cold and snowy and just like Michigan, only worse. And the weather was terrible. But one thing that stands out in that respect was my worst Christmas Eve of ever was Christmas Eve 1944. Was stayed in a bombed out tavern, so we had a roof overhead, so to speak, such as it was. And the next day we moved on to the area of Bastogne itself.
Mhm.
And that's when the rescues, part of the air force come in and flew in with supplies and helped the troops of our division, all of them there to make the breakthrough to Bastogne proper. They was encircled. We had men in troops encircled in Bastogne, as many people already know, but, and that's where we wasn't, our division and our outfit wasn't up there too long. I mean, we was called back and proceeded on our original trek into Germany and this sort of thing.
Let's see, when you were dealing with the POWs, do you know where they went? Like, were they being transferred into Russia or back into Germany?
I can't say where they were going exactly, but they went back to headquarters, our headquarters, as thoroughly interrogated, and this sort of thing, got all the information. About that time, before this, they was taking them, bringing them back to the States here. And that got to be too much, and they got plenty of territory to house them over there, and so that, but I think they was distributed pretty well through France.
Okay.
The area here.
When you were dealing with them, how did they conduct themselves? Were they...
Some of them, most of them, the majority were older people, you know, and they were glad, happy the war's over for them.
Okay.
They had a real good, yeah, they was, we didn't have hardly any trouble at all. And I know when I'd take a group or whatever, they wouldn't be, sometimes there'd be so many we couldn't handle them all. We just told them to march down the road with their hands in their head. Someone would pick them up, you know, this sort of thing. But if we had them overnight, we put them in an open field, made them lay down, give them all the call to take care of their duties, and no one was to raise up at all, or they'd, you know, you'd silhouette, they was ordered to shoot, not to, but that never had happened. They was all pretty well behaved.
Okay. Did you ever have to deal with any of the just ordinary citizens in Germany?
Not very much. I mean, certainly there was times when we had to make communications with them and talk to them and maybe get some information or something. They was quite, we'd come into a town and of course there's houses right on the streets and the little villages, and the windows is open and the white sheets come out the windows, the surrender sign, you know. So other than that, I had more contact with the civilian population after the war was over.
Okay.
We skipped a little bit there. When the war ended, it was in Czechoslovakia, and that's where we met the Russians.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Okay, Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
What was going on now?
Well, that's where we met the Russians, and there was a big celebration. And everybody was handing out flowers and booze. Had a good time. We was there a short time, maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. And then our people we were sent to southern Bavaria in Germany for occupation.
Right.
And that's where we had a lot of contact with civilian people there. Our contingent of MPs was about 12 or 14, you know, with a sergeant in charge and major and stuff. And we lived in what they called a Brauhaus, a brewery thing had a stage and a restaurant and rooms. It was like heaven almost at that time. The war was over and very little to do. That went on until September.
September of 45?
44.
44.
Yeah, I meant.
Yeah, I think it was 45.
45, it has to be, yeah, 45.
Okay, so you were then part of the Army of Occupation when you were staying in Bavaria?
Yeah, right.
Okay. What kind of things did you have to do there? You said there wasn't a whole lot to do.
Yeah, right, there wasn't a whole lot to do. I mean, I think we was there as more as a deterrent or anything. If anything popped up, we could have maybe not taken care of it totally, but we'd have been the nucleus of any disturbance or problems there.
Okay.
Nice people, just like average people around here. They're very understanding. The only people that was kind of real obstinate was the SS. They were made up of younger people that was raised up under the Hitler regime. You know, so that'd be the only discord there.
Okay. While you were in France, or even while you were in France, England, did you notice, was there like a whole lot of destruction to cities or anything bombed out?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, for particularly, I saw more of France and the rest of the countries of Germany, just on the train, bang, 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 and we was over there.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, we saw a lot of things that was totally demolished and bombed, you know, here from the air, as well as the artillery. And so finally, we're, like I say, September, I got a emergency furlough to come home.
Uh-huh.
And
Do you want me to pause it? Oh, let me check on this a second. See if it's, okay, so then, did you have to go back to Europe after that?
no, I was, let's see, well, yeah, I got it home and landed in Kilmer again, Camp Kilmer, and I was given a 30-day leave.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to my home in Mount Vernon and took care of things, which was short order. In fact, I went back to my job for a couple of weeks or so. And so finally, I tried to get an extension so I could stay home for Christmas, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't do it. This was getting towards this real close. So I reported back to Camp Lee, Virginia. And I was there for 3 or 4 days. And every day they was calling out people to be discharged and stuff.
Right.
So the day before Christmas, my name was called, and that was in, just real close to Washington, D.C., so we brought into D.C. and got our separation papers on December 24th. And then we was free to go, and they gave us $100 to get a bus or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the buses was full, and the trains are full, and no airlines full, so 5 of us went together and pooled our money, about $20 a piece, and took a taxi to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We wanted to get to Columbus, I had a brother there.
Uh-huh.
And so we did, and got to Pittsburgh and got a train the rest of the way into Columbus. And got in there in the wee hours of the morning and called my brother. And I got a cab and went to his house. And that was Christmas morning. That was quite a treat for me.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a haircut and a lot of things, but it's taken care of real good.
Okay, and then, so what did you do after that? Did you go back to work?
Yeah, I went back to the express company, right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a truck driver for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for exclusive then. But as things changed, and I was offered a job to go into supervision, which I took.
Mm-hmm.
And from that time on, I would go to different towns in Ohio where there's any sickness or a vacation or a vacancy or whatever created the vacancy. I'd go to relieve
Mm-hmm.
to gain experience. So that went on for about a year. And well, to back up a little bit, just ahead of that, I got married.
Mm-hmm.
And married a lady for 47 years we lived together. So. And but then getting back to my training part, my first office was in Minerva, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
It's northern part of Ohio. Then I was moved around and changed, and finally I had an office in Wilmington, Ohio. That was really the first one that comes to mind now. Okay, Wilmington. And then from Wilmington I was moved to Findlay, Ohio. Was there only 5 months. And then I was transferred to Jackson, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and was there for a number of years. And then I finally went to Hastings, Michigan, and finally Muskegon. And this was like in early 60s, and the company was getting kind of shaky and bad. I mean, as far as, and finally, to make a long story short, I could almost see the demise of the whole company, which it turned out to happen eventually in 69 or 8, something like that. before they closed the doors, I gave them my resignation. I went to work for Shaw Walker Company as an assistant traffic manager at the time.
Okay.
And worked from 66 to 83 when I retired.
Okay.
And made a lot of friends, and this is home to me now. I mean, I like it. But then, her name, my wife's name was Helen. She died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was ironic when I was working at Shaw Walker. I had a good friend called Charlie Murphy, and we used to play cribbage together at noon and this sort of thing. And as it turned out, his life was terminated or ended, you know. And so then I knew Kay here. And one thing led to another, and so we was married in 93.
94.
94, what did I say?
That's
That's it,
Uh-oh.
okay. Yeah, 94, right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it to date as far as we've enjoyed. Well, I did have a horrendous motorcycle accident in 95 right out here in Harvey and Sternberg in Muskegon.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the hospital about 3 months, yeah.
Not good.
So I got rods here and a rod in the leg, and so I had other contingent things with my lungs. I put a stent in there and this sort of thing. And that's kind of cut our activities short, but we've managed to travel somewhat. Went to Hawaii on our honeymoon before I had the accident, of course. You think of anything, huh?
Well, I have a few more questions
Yeah,
about while
okay,
you were
good.
in Europe. While you were there, were you able to communicate with your family, writing letters back and forth, or
When I
anybody
was
else?
overseas, you mean?
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We had what we called V-mail. And V-mail, I'd write the letter like any other letter, and if I sent any pictures, I'd have to put on the back of it, not for publication and stuff like that. But when they was transmitted, they was sent on a film, like a picture. In other words, when they read it, it wasn't regular paper that'd been photographed, and that was what, yeah. But, other than that, there was no telephone,
No telephone.
or at least we didn't have any communications that way.
Did you ever get to take any time off on leave while you were there?
Yes, after the war was over, we did have an opportunity to go to the Riviera, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
The trip there was something else, but I can't expect everything, you know, but that was quite a treat.
Okay. Did you hear any media sources where you're hearing about what's going on in other parts of Europe or what's going on in the Pacific with the war?
I can't really detail anything now about that, but I'm sure we did have some information. I know I was kind of concerned about when I got out, would I be, after I got settled down and be sent over to Vietnam or Korea or wherever the trouble was. That didn't happen. And I was close to having enough points to give you points for your time in service. I had 23 months, and 18 months was overseas. That counted double in points, so I was within 2 or 3 points of getting discharged anyhow. So
Okay.
wiped it out.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if I have any more questions. What do you think about the way that the World War II is portrayed in movies today?
Oh. Well, I think, what was Bond about the brothers?
Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers, yeah, I thought that was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to depict the real stuff. The only other thing I failed to mention there was, I did visit one prison camp called Buchenwald, and that was Polish people, and they were just like skin and bones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrible sight.
And that was in Poland or Germany?
That was in, it's on the map there, on the second section up towards the top there, maybe just slide it down. I think it's in, I think it's in Germany. Just slide it
It's right there.
down. Oh, yeah, okay.
Here, let's see. If you, I'll give it to you if you wanna maybe hold it up just a little bit. Center in on it here.
This is the first part of it, that's the second part.
Okay, you wanna hold that one up and I'll get a picture of the map? I wanna get a close-up of it.
Well, that was Germany, definitely. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then. Okay.
Got it.
Mhm. Okay, so what were you doing at the prison camp?
Just see how it was, you know, they were all corpses at that time. They was
Okay.
stacked up like cordwood with lime on them. It was, we didn't hang around a long time.
Mhm.
It's just too bad. I mean, get any joy out of it or anything.
Okay. Do you think that they should reinstate the draft right now for the present war that we're in?
Well, I think there should be some help given to the reserves, the people that's being chosen now. I mean,
Mhm.
it's creating a lot of hardship. And I think the draft would be a fair solution to that myself.
Okay. Do you have any other stories or instances, anything very memorable that you can think of you'd like to include?
Well, excuse me. Since then, there was 4 couples of us got together for a little reunion in Buffalo, New York. We was
Mhm.
all in the same platoon squad together overseas, and there's only one of them left now. He lives in New Hampshire. Kay and I was able to visit he and his wife. How many years ago now?
About 4 years.
About 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite a joy. But the other 3 was not demised, you know, I mean, gone.
I found him on the internet.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I think the big awakening, boy, was when they went across the channel. Of course, there's no docks or anything over there. We had to get down the side of the ship and what they call a rope ladder, you know, with the little, they throw a rope.
Right.
And I remember the guy saying, "Now keep going, because the guy ahead of you is gonna stand and step on your hands if you
Mhm.
don't." So we had our rifle and a backpack, you know, and it wasn't easy, but you can do a lot when you have to.
Yeah.
And then we got into a small boat and just stood there shoulder to shoulder. And when they got up to the shore, they let the thing down and we walked out. It was, like I say, it was 30 days after D-Day, so
Mhm.
it was pretty safe there at that time. I just can imagine what the original troops done at the time of the initial invasion. That had to be pure bad.
Mhm.
Had a lot of help during my life, and I've enjoyed the publication called Rolling Together, and that it, huh?
Rolling along.
Rolling Along, yeah, the
Mhm.
4th Armored Division Association.
Okay.
And it's a quarterly publication.
Mhm.
They do have reunions, however, I have never been able to, I didn't feel I was able physically to take the advantage of them, you know.
Mhm.
But keep in touch that way and know what's going on, so. I can't think of anything else. If you got a question that would jog my mind.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that seem to cover it for you?
Yeah.